On December 30th, 2022, one signature changed the way football talks about money. When Cristiano Ronaldo joined Al Nassr, the reported package was discussed in the range of $200 million a year once you include the full commercial and ambassador side. People can debate the exact total, but the function of the number is the same either way. It made the market feel real. And once the market feels real, the dominoes don't wait. In the last episode on Football Frenzy, we broke down how Messi plugged into the American sports economy and turned MLS into a global product by amplifying demand inside a system built to monetize attention. This episode is the continuation of the same idea, but the mechanism is different. Ronaldo didn't arrive and slowly build demand first. He reset the price ceiling, legitimized a destination that Europe had been treating as a footnote, and triggered a chain reaction that forced the football world to pay attention. We'll go step by step. What Saudi football looked like before Ronaldo. What changed immediately after. Why the public investment fund matters. How legitimacy creates a multiplier effect. What a price reset does to negotiations across the sport. And why this project is both a business revolution and one of the most debated strategies in modern football. One quick note before we start. A lot of the financial figures here come from reported estimates, not audited books. Treat them as directional. The pattern is still clear, and the pattern is the story. To understand why Ronaldo's move mattered, you have to remember what kind of asset he still was in late 2022. This wasn't a standard big name signs a contract moment. Ronaldo is an attention engine. His decisions create headlines by themselves. His presence pulls cameras even when the football situation is messy, and his name carries brand value that is unusually portable. He doesn't need the Champions League anthem to feel like global football. He brings the spotlight with him. At the same time, his European situation had collapsed. The Manchester United chapter ended in a way that was loud, public, and not easy to unwind. And the usual next steps for a player in that position are pretty predictable. Either a top European club takes a risk and absorbs the noise, or you choose a late career destination that feels familiar in football terms. Saudi Arabia was not the obvious answer, and that's exactly why it mattered. Because before Ronaldo, the Saudi Pro League was not treated as a serious destination for elite football. For many fans, it was simply outside their mental map, and even for people who were aware of it, it often sat in the category of a league you hear about occasionally, not a league you watch. Most casual fans could not name a Saudi club instantly without thinking. Then Ronaldo signed, and the perception barrier cracked. Before the end of 2022, the Saudi Pro League was easy to ignore internationally. After Ronaldo, it became a league you had to explain, even if you didn't like it, and even if you had no intention of watching a full match. And it's important to say this clearly. This wasn't because the on-pitch level suddenly turned into the Premier League overnight. It didn't. The change was reputational first, not competitive first. The hardest part of building a new football destination is not money. Money can buy contracts. Money can buy facilities. Money can buy marketing. The hardest thing to buy is reputation, because reputation requires someone to take the first leap while the risk is still concentrated on them. That first leap is the first mechanism in this story, legitimacy. Ronaldo's unveiling in Riyadh became a spectacle, and the coverage traveled everywhere, across mainstream sports media and across social platforms that don't normally spend time on Saudi domestic football. That matters because football economics are built on attention. Attention becomes sponsorship leverage. Attention becomes media interest. Attention turns a league from local entertainment into a product you can package and distribute internationally. Ronaldo is one of the few players in history who can generate that attention without needing a Champions League night as the stage. And once that first headline landed, the follow-up headlines came quickly. More stars were linked, more deals were rumored, more conversations started happening in places where this league simply didn't exist before. And even if you ignore the rumors and focus only on what eventually happened, the pattern was obvious. Once Ronaldo arrived, it stopped being a strange one-off and started looking like a pipeline. Now we get to the part that separates Saudi from a lot of previous new money league experiments. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF, is the sovereign wealth fund that has been described in many reports as a central engine behind the country's long-term economic strategy connected to Vision 2030, with investments across multiple sectors. In football, two moves matter most for understanding the market shift. First, the PIF-backed acquisition of a majority stake in Newcastle United in 2021 put Saudi capital inside the Premier League ecosystem, which matters because the Premier League is still the sport's most influential business model. Second, in 2023, the PIF took control of four major domestic clubs: Al Ittihad, Al Nasser, Al Hilal, and Al Ahly. That second move is not a footnote, it changes the logic of the league. In a typical money league story, you get one rich club, one massive signing, and then the wave fades because the league around it can't support the product. It becomes a single spotlight with darkness around it. Here, the structure looks more like a system. Star power can be distributed across multiple clubs. Competition can be designed to feel real across the top end. A long-term product can be built, not just a single headline. Before this, it was easy to frame Saudi football as a temporary moment. After the four-club model, it starts to look like an organized project with a multi-year plan. And this is also where the reactions become intense, because two ideas can be true at the same time. This can be a major business investment in a league, and it can also be part of a broader national strategy that people interpret in very different ways. We'll come back to that in a calm, non-preachy way later. But first, we need to understand the market mechanism. Once Ronaldo arrived, the multiplier effect became visible. Ronaldo, then names like Benzema, Kanté, Mahrez, Mané, Firmino, Ruben Neves, Neymar, and others connected to the same flow. Say those names in one breath and you understand the point. This is a one transfer, it's a migration pattern, and the reason a pattern forms is simple. Once the move feels legitimate, agents can sell it with confidence. Clubs can justify it as a project. Sponsors can attach to it without feeling like they're sponsoring a sideshow, and players can tell themselves they're joining a destination, not disappearing. The first superstar is the hardest because he carries most of the reputational risk. After that, the risk becomes diluted. Every additional star makes the league feel more normal, and that feeling of normal is what unlocks the next layer of business. Legitimacy also creates a second-order effect. It makes the league talkable. When people talk about a league, they search for it. When people search for it, it becomes easier to distribute digitally. When it becomes easier to distribute, it becomes easier to monetize over time. That doesn't instantly turn it into Europe's ecosystem, but it does create a platform, and platforms can be scaled. Now we hit the mechanism that reaches beyond Saudi Arabia and into football economics everywhere: the price reset. Ronaldo's deal didn't only pay Ronaldo, it made a new ceiling visible. And once a ceiling is visible, it becomes leverage in negotiations across the sport. A player in Europe does not need to move to Saudi Arabia to benefit from Saudi Arabia existing. His agent can reference Saudi interest, reference the Saudi ceiling, or reference the idea that top-end money is now available outside Europe. Even when the offer is hypothetical, the fact that the market is credible changes the conversation. That shifts wage expectations, commissions, bonuses, and contract structures. And it also changes the psychology of the market, because for decades, Europe held a near monopoly on two things at once: the highest level of competition and the biggest money. Saudi doesn't have to replace Europe to influence Europe. It only has to exist as a credible alternative with a higher top-end ceiling, and Ronaldo helped prove that ceiling could be real. Saudi football is not close to Europe's economic foundation yet, and you can see that in the most commonly cited comparisons. The Premier League's annual revenue numbers are often discussed in the range of multiple billions of dollars in a single season, while estimates for the Saudi Pro League before the recent surge were far smaller, sometimes cited around 100 million. Attendance comparisons tell a similar story in the public conversation. The Premier League averages crowds in the tens of thousands per match, while Saudi crowds have often been discussed in the single thousands to low tens of thousands, depending on the club, the match, and whether stars are playing. So the question becomes obvious: why invest this much money into a league that by traditional metrics does not yet produce traditional returns? because the objective is not only the league. This is a long-term effort where football functions as tourism marketing, international positioning, and a global visibility tool connected to a broader economic vision. If you treat it like a club budget, the spending looks irrational. If you treat it like nation branding with a multi-year horizon, the logic changes. And you don't have to fully agree with that strategy to understand that it is the strategy. Even without access to internal financial reports, there are 3 visible markers that tell you the product changed. First, the global attention footprint changed. The Saudi Pro League became a recurring topic in football media, not something mentioned once a year as trivia. Second, certain match days became events. Tickets behave differently when people are buying the experience of seeing a global name, not just supporting a local club. VIP inventory, hospitality, and merchandising behavior shift when star power is part of the product. Third, the negotiating environment changed. European clubs now face a market that can outbid them at the top end. And even if that doesn't affect every player, it affects the top of the pyramid. And the top of the pyramid influences everything below it. Those markers aren't trophies, but they are what the early phase of a market shift looks like. Messi showed what happens when a superstar enters the American sports ecosystem and amplifies demand inside a commercial system designed to monetize attention. Ronaldo showed what happens when a superstar becomes the legitimacy trigger for a state-backed football project, resets the price ceiling, and breaks Europe's monopoly on being the biggest offer at the very top of the market. He didn't need to turn the Saudi Pro League into the Premier League overnight. He only needed to make the world believe the market was real, because once the world believes it, the domino effect becomes easier, faster, and more repeatable. If you want more episodes in this series, with the same numbers-first approach and the same business lens, subscribe to Football Frenzy, and I'll see you in the next one.